Hello, friends. This is Rekha Kurup, and continuing the conversation on trauma. I hope the last two videos on the autonomous nervous system was valuable, relevant, and gave you deeper insights into understanding the functionality of your own body. And so today I'm starting again the next three, four parts. I'm going to make it shorter. It's going to be on the brain, on our brain. Yeah. And this will interconnect with the autonomous nervous system and give you more deeper insights into understanding developmental trauma when I speak about that. So before, and if you're really interested in trauma work and understanding trauma, I think one of the most phenomenal books is this: The Body Keeps the Score. Brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. It's a book by Basil van der Kolk. It is based on all the research that he has done, and it is absolutely phenomenal. So I want to begin by this quote that by Roger Sperry that is there in the chapter 4 of this book. Prior to the advent of brain, there was no color and no sound in the universe, nor was there any flavor or aroma, and probably little sense and no feelings or emotions. Before brains, the universe was also free of pain and anxiety. Yeah, so this is so profound. Just to take a breath on that as well. And one of the core things that I want to start by saying is that our brain, there are the two halves of the brain. I've heard about it from such a long time. And even now I have friends who would argue, or people who I know would argue, there's nothing like that. There is no left brain, right brain, one being more logical, one being more creative. And so I just wanted to read this before I start speaking about the brain. The two halves of the brain do speak different languages. The right is intuitive, emotional, visual, spatial, and tactual. And the left is linguistic, sequential, and analytical. While the left half of the brain does all the talking, the right half of the brain carries the music of experience. It communicates through facial expression and body language, and by making the sounds of love and sorrow, by singing, swearing, crying, dancing, or mimicking. So this is also very important to know. Even as I'm speaking, it's not just one side. It's a coordinated effort of my brain. You can see emotions and feelings come on my face, about what I'm talking. There's so much happening. And my brain, my entire brain, and I'm also feeling it. So you'll know that I'm feeling and I'm not talking disconnected from my heart. So this whole coordinated effort of the brain. So there are two sides to the brain, yeah? And so let me ask you this question, what is the most important functionality or job of the brain? What is the most important job of the human brain? This question or this blew me away, because no one had ever told me this. Yeah, I I thought the job of my brain was to learn, to study, to know integral calculus, to do the most complex of problems. That is why I have a brain. But for the brain, the most important job of the brain is to ensure our survival at any cost, in the most excruciating of circumstances, to make sure that we survive. That is the most important job of the brain. Everything else is secondary. This is something to really understand. in the world today, when kids come to school, first is for the kid to feel that it is, safety and protection. That is what knows that, I've survived this day, I'm here. Only then anything else can happen. So so the brain is forever working on this. Yeah. And so when someone doesn't survive, yeah, and especially I want to begin by just making, when I read this is what I became present to, because I have lost friends to suicide. And it is one of the most painful moments. And often the one who died of suicide is blamed or held responsible. But they did not fail. We, as family, as friends, as community, as society, yeah, we failed those who die of suicide. We fail them. This is as painful it might be. It is the truth, because their brain has tried their level best for them to survive. But somehow, yeah, and we are social beings, as you will see, that social or the society was not able to hold space for that. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that, because it brings me also a lot of grief to even say that and to acknowledge that. And I make room for that. I make room for my guilt, yeah, as well. And so what does it mean? So again, coming back, the most important job of my brain is to ensure that I survive. And what does it do to ensure that I survive? Bessel van der Kolk, in his book, he actually talks about 5 core tasks of the brain. And, I wanted to mention that, the very first thing is that to ensure that our bodies survive is to ensure what it needs to survive. What do our bodies need to survive? We have only heard usually, of these 3 things: food, shelter, clothing. I think clothing is also secondary. Food and shelter, of course, if you're in extreme winter or things like that. But we definitely need food, shelter, clothing. We need safety and protection. This is so crucial. We don't even understand. It is the most essential necessity, is safety and protection. Rest. Rest is a very essential need of the body. Connection is an essential need of the body. Connection, intimacy, sex. These are all important, essential needs of the body. And our brain is forever generating signals for us to meet these needs. Yeah. So how is it doing this? The first step is the brain is forever trying to meet our needs, our body's needs, and we identified the needs. Second is, it is creating an inner map. It's forever trying to map the world so that we can meet these needs. Even if it's a baby, a newborn baby. Actually, a newborn baby is so selfishly meeting these needs. It's tuned into it. It will cry. It doesn't care what you're doing. So it is so tuned into a baby to survive. It is built and it will want to survive. Yeah, by whatever means, it will try its best. Yeah. So that is the second. It will map. What do I do? What is it that I need to do to make these needs met? So it's forever creating this map of its world around it and how it can meet that. What is there? So it is forever in this thing. Where to go? Where do I go to meet this? And the third is to mobilize the body to meet that need. Yeah. How do I, so that means I need energy. Yeah, I require energy to meet that need. So I need to have enough energy to move towards whatever that is, which is going to meet my need to ensure my survival. So energy and action. So this is the third. So first is the needs itself, identifying those basic needs. Second is forever trying to figure out where are these needs. Third is how do I get there? So I need energy and I need mobility to get there. And the fourth is, as in this process, detecting danger as well as possibility or opportunities for my survival and to meet these needs. So it is not just detecting danger, it is also detecting opportunities. Here, when you're very hungry, you will know where to go looking, and you will, this happens. So opportunities and danger. So the brain is forever working on that. What are these dangers? What are these opportunities on my way as I meet my needs? And the most, important one, how do I adjust my actions, in the moment to meet my needs? Why? The fifth one is very important because as human beings, we will not live in isolation. We are mammals, and even more advanced and complex mammals of living in groups, in societies, in communities, in herds, in tribes, right? So just having things around doesn't meet our needs. We also need to know how to coordinate, how to collaborate, and how to cooperate with those that we are. So we also learn, so adjusting our own cues, our own this to survive. It just does this. These are the 5 most important tasks of the brain. Yeah. And so this is so important for us to understand. Yeah. And this is forever happening. Yeah. And our childhood, the process in which our brain develops, all these 5 things get built into it. Yeah. And as we grow up, that starts to inform. And of course, we can always even later on, the brain is so elastic that change is possible. But as we grow older, it becomes more and more difficult to change certain patterns that we have built. Yeah. So now we understand the development of the brain. Yeah. We know most when we say brain, everybody's, even me, for the most part of my life, think, we think about, the brain means we think about our thinking, our ability to cognize, the rational brain. That is what comes immediately. My brain means my rational brain, my ability to think. And the feeling means we think of the heart. But it's all here. That's the best part to know. And our thinking brain, our rational brain, is only 30% of our brain. It is such a small part. So 70% of our brain is something else. It's doing some other task. So this rational thinking brain, processing, meaning making, story making, the one that is talking right now, this language, all of this part is only 30% of the brain. Yeah, and the rational brain is the youngest brain. It is the most recent brain in the lineage of human evolution. It is the most youngest, and yet it thinks it's the biggest, right? That is, look at the state of the world. Yeah. So below the rational brain, so if our brain is below the rational brain is our mammalian brain. Also, we can call it the limbic system. And even below it is our reptilian brain, which is the first one, which is the oldest, most primitive brain. The reptilian brain. That is the first thing actually, when we are born with the reptilian brain, yeah, which consists of our brainstem. If I could show it to you, this right here, where the spine meets into the skull, that's where our brainstem is. The youngest, the first thing to come, but the oldest, yeah. And so this 70% constituting the limbic system, the mammalian brain, and the reptilian brain, they together constitute our emotional brain. Yeah. And that is what is responsible for these 5 activities that I spoke about forever. So once this is met, only then, once the survival is ensured, that is when everything else can come into. That's when the cortical brain or the rational brain, that then the lobes that you see, that's when they can actually function. That's when they can come online. If the remaining part, the 70% of the brain, which can do those 5 tasks of survival, ensuring survival, only then we have access to thinking, yeah, learning, and all of that, right? So this 70% of the brain consisting of the limbic system and the brainstem and hypothalamus, together it is responsible for all the functionality of the brain, of our body, yeah, or everything. The body physiology, identifying comfort, safety, hunger, rest, fatigue, intimacy, desire, longing, excitement, pleasure, pain, all of this that is what is responsible. So most important to understand, so I'll just talk about the reptilian brain and I will pause for today. The most important to know that is our brain is built from bottoms up, from the innermost, this and this. So if I have to show you my hand, this is something that I saw from Dan Siegel's work, is if you see, this is our brain stem and this is the limbic system. So there is the brain stem, then this is the brain stem, then the limbic system is folded in, and this is our brain, or the top layer of our brain. So everything is inside, wrapped inside it, but this is what comes first. Yeah, so if I can even show it this way, yeah, like that. So from 0 to 9 months and the first 4 to 6 months. So you can say that from 0 to 15 months. Yeah, 0 to 15 months is the brain is primitive. The brain of the baby is primitive in the sense 13 to 14 months, right? It is it's the reptilian brain. Only the brainstem and the hypothalamus together are functioning. They are the only ones that are online. Yeah, and what does that mean? Only they are available. That means that only basic functionalities are available. And that is basic. What is basic? What does a baby do in the first, while it is inside the stomach, in the womb, and when it is born, the first 4 to 5 months? Yeah. What does the baby do? Not even 4, I think 3 months. What does the baby do? All the baby does is the baby feeds, eats, feels hunger, it cries. Yeah, it cries, it can sense temperature. It can sense temperature, it can sense wetness. That's why if you don't change or if the baby is wet, the baby will cry. It can sense wetness, and then it breathes. Of course, the most basic thing, it breathes, it cries, yeah, and it also poops and pees. Any mother or a parent, you can ask, the first 2 months, this is all the baby did. And even when it was inside the stomach, this is all the baby could do. These are basic survival functionalities. And this is, even though we say it's the basic, it is the most important housekeeping of our body. If any of these functions do not work, not just as a baby, even as an adult, our entire system collapses. Yeah, we don't even realize that. Yeah. So the brainstem and the hypothalamus together, yeah, they are responsible for the regulation of the heart, the functionalities of the heart, the lungs, the digestion of the food, maintaining the body temperature, and this entire homeostasis that I was talking about. It is responsible for that. So if you look at a baby, you can really see this functionality happening. Now, if you see in this environment of survival, if the baby doesn't have the world for survival, in the sense, if the mother is stressed when the baby is in the womb, for whatever reason, it affects the baby's basic survival housekeeping. Its functionality gets affected. And when the baby is born, the first 2 months, if its needs are not met, any of these met, it's not cleaned properly, the baby is not fed on time, as and when it is hungry, and it's as soon as it cries, if it's not lifted, every time it's cried, it's not lifted, it's not cleaned, or it's not taken care of in all its ways, this very basic housekeeping gets disrupted. And whenever there is trauma in anyone's nervous system, especially in PTSD, was when it was really observed. When someone has PTSD, this basic housekeeping gets affected in unbelievable ways. Something as simple, as hunger, being able to eat, defecation, peeing, some basic housekeeping gets disrupted. It doesn't function. Yeah. And that is where you will see trauma whenever there is trauma, and when there is developmental trauma in the first 0 to 14 to 15 months, the baby does not have the environment to fully take care of the baby. It has lasting consequences. I was listening to Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey's talk on their new book, It Happened to You. And that Bruce Perry says that the first 2 months, if in the first 2 months the baby is cared for, fully cared for, held by different people, rocked, sung to, loved, the mother is happy, the parents are happy, and maybe after that there's a catastrophic event that happens in the baby, maybe it loses its parents or something happens and it has to move into a disruptive home or a disruptive environment. What they're finding through research is that the baby will still has higher chances of survival than if the first 2 months of the baby was very disruptive. Yeah, very disruptive. Its needs were not met. The mother was very stressed. The baby was in a very stressful environment. There was a lot of neglect and abuse in the first 9 months and the 2 months. And after that, even if the baby is given the best of home, is given the best of circumstances, the baby takes a long time to get back into homeostasis. So what we are learning today is this development of the reptilian brain, and that time of the reptilian brain when it is online, before we have the limbic system, before we have cognition, is the most crucial in brain development. Yeah. And it has to be at the center of every society, every culture, every complex, living community. This has to, we have to ensure that the mother, so that means the mother with the baby, really has to be taken care of. Yeah. Whatever may be, it has to be. So this is something. So this is the reptilian brain, which is also called as the housekeeping. Yeah, housekeeping. And this is the housekeeping. It does the most crucial job, and on its foundation of this housekeeping reptilian brain is everything else built up. So this is something very important to understand in brain development. So I'm going to pause here and continue moving into the limbic system and the rational brain tomorrow. So hope you enjoyed it, and start looking at your basic functionality, basic housekeeping in your body. How is it moving? How is it functioning? Very, very important. That is, if we lose touch with the basic housekeeping, when our body is telling us when it is tired, when it has energy, when it is hungry, when it wants to pee, when it wants to go to toilet. When these very basic knowing, if we do not know to listen to this and pay attention to this, I feel we have lost the game of everything else. So this is where, even as adults, sometimes this is where we have to begin. Most of us are so held in the 30% of the brain. We are so preoccupied in the functionality of the 30% of the brain, which is the cortical or the neocortex or the frontal lobe of our brain, that the 70% we pay no attention to. And that is where it is the change that we are beginning to do. Because once you start paying attention to the body and your own rhythm, you start recognizing that, something's housekeeping is not working that well. What's happening here? And that is where you may discover that there has been trauma. Yeah, and there has been something sitting there, which now you have to start paying attention to. So that's all for today, and I hope you enjoyed this and hope it was informative. Blessed be.